Hello, you're listening to the Neil Lamptey Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined by Paul.
All right, mate.
And by Neil.
Present.
And by little Eddie Wilson.
Hello.
Welcome back. Right, what happened since the last time we podded?
I've been on holiday, which is why it's taken so long for us to pod.
Do you want to tell us a little bit of your holiday stuff?
Well, my daughter fell in a ditch, which I found hilarious, and she didn't.
Very good. Anyone else been on holiday?
No, mate.
There we go. Well, that was the Neil Lamptey Show for this week. Thank you very much for
See you next season.
League One, guys. Is everyone still excited? I'm still very, very, very excited by it all.
Pretty chilled now, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Calm down.
Just in time for this. Let's do moments of over the period of time since the last game of the season. I don't know why. I mean, I could have just called it moments of the week, given the level of contrivance that we put towards that normally. But I think you know what I mean. Paul, give us yours.
I'm going to make this about my children again, but it was driving to the zoo on Saturday with both of them singing the Mickey Doyle song and taking it in turns, which was just really funny because my youngest can't quite get it, and my oldest like, no, it's Mickey Doyle, and no, and so the fact that Mary's still completely engaged, even if it's just in one song, is still quite nice to see.
Very good.
It wasn't enough for you to drive your nephew, who not only grew up almost literally a stone's throw away from Old Trafford, but actually then played for their youth team, to drive him towards Coventry City. Now you've got two tiny daughters whose lives you're ruining.
Ruining? Mary's been to Wembley twice in like 12 months.
Yeah, that is
That's
true.
ruining.
She's living it up, isn't she?
All downhill from here. Yeah. Okay, so Neil, your moment of the things that happened.
Kind of similar, actually. So we won. That was great. And then since that point, everybody's been really happy. And we had the parade, and everybody was still really happy. And there was a load of stuff going on. Footballers in nightclubs and all that sort of stuff. But what I really liked was it was on Twitter last week. I think it was some school in Cov, was it Finham or something, singing on the coach, pretty much the whole coach singing the Mickey Doyle song. And then again, we're referencing Mickey Doyle song, but what really got me was the fact that I remember being at school and there was about 3 Cov fans in my class, and this is when we were in the Premiership.
True, yeah.
Like back then, that was supposed to be our sort of heyday, and even then there was hardly anybody supporting Cov, and now you've got whole school buses full of kids knowing a song about our captain. Something's going on here, I reckon. This is good.
Neil,
Yeah.
you say that everyone's been happy since we won, but with the exception of Mark McNulty, who's found time to take a break from his holiday to get pissed off with someone talking about him.
Oh,
in
not
the media.
this.
Neil, do you
No, I
get...
think we should spend the next 15 minutes analysing this non-story because it's brilliant. and I'd just like to add that, yes, I do completely blame the Coventry Telegraph. It is a non-story, but it's just quite nice that they're getting a kick in for it.
Controversial, but true. Yeah.
They seem pretty pleased, don't they? So they seem like, oh, this is a new story that we didn't quite intend, but look, people are clicking on our website again. Lovely.
Neil, you've got to remember that their salaries are pegged to the number of hits that they're getting, probably, per day. So I imagine they
explains
are
a lot.
pleased.
I think as well, let's draw an important distinction here, because I have no axe to grind with many of the people at the Cov Telegraph. Andy Turner seems like a really nice bloke who does a really good service, and what's his face, James Roger, who was there, and Aidan, and there's plenty of people.
Roger's lovely.
There's plenty of people over there doing a really, really, really good job. So it's not about having to go at any of the individuals involved. But the newspaper, if it still exists in paper form, I wouldn't wipe my ass with. It is a fucking rag. There's no two ways about it. But it's not those individuals' fault that the way that the press industry has gone is just, it's just a big constant fart in your face, isn't it?
But just to reiterate, it was a non-story.
Yes.
Well, I mean, to be honest, if you look at, I did a bit of research earlier, and I bet no one could name the players who's been top goal scorer in League Two for the last 5 or 6 years. None of them have gone on to do anything remarkably remarkable. Quite a few of them are still. One of the guys who was at Barnet was in the top 3 goal scorers 2 of the last 3 seasons, and he's still at Barnet. So
Obviously,
I can understand from.
Obviously, you've never heard of a little player called Pele.
Well, sorry. Do you want to know that? Here's a question for you, Joey. Who's the last player you'd sort of similar age scored about 25 goals in League Two?
What? I don't really understand that question.
The question is sort of the last player to sort of do what McNulty did is one of your favourite Coventry players of all time.
Oh, Cody Mack.
Yeah.
Oof.
Oh,
To hear his
That's a
name.
massive mistake here. You read the article. You're reading.
No, I didn't. I didn't. What I did was I went
You've
through
actually
the.
not focused on one word. If you focused on one word, you would be livid.
Yeah, sorry. I also checked to see who the top goal scorers for the last 5 or 6 seasons in League Two, and I think the other guy was Sam Winnell or something, who's now at Barnsley.
Barnsley, that's right, yeah.
But some of them have got moved to the Championship clubs, and basically scored 2 or 3 goals in 2 or 3 seasons. I think there is definitely a question mark over. I'm not taking. McNulty's been magnificent. There's no denying McNulty's been magnificent, but there is that thing he's been magnificent in League Two. And I think that has to be that context in there. It's like not many players go on from being magnificent in League Two to being magnificent in higher divisions. And I can understand where sort of Morton was coming from. But yeah, I think it was just quite a funny story for everyone to get their knickers in a twist about.
We've not even got out of moments of the week, and already we're sticking the boot into Mark McNulty, 28 goal man McNulty.
Not sticking the boot in.
no one's sticking the boot in.
Anyone could score that amount of goals in League Two.
I'm not. That's not what I said, is it?
You called him a fluke. You're out of order.
At least one of his goals was a fluke. That one against Stevenage, that was a fluke. So he's now down to 24 goals.
Take out the cup goals. Take out the penalties.
Barely scored.
Barely.
He didn't score at Wembley. You know.
Jesus. Ed, your moment of the week.
I am going with a Mark Robins related moment of the week. So, it seems that when you get older, and particularly if you've had a drink, you lose what it takes to sort of understand what the focus of an anecdote is. And as you're doing an anecdote, you just include like more and more incidental information until the initial sort of thrust of the anecdote is completely lost. So about a week after the final, just after he'd signed his new contract, Robins put out a statement which was firstly supposed to be about the fact that he was pleased to have signed a new contract, and secondly was supposed to be urging people to buy season tickets. In the middle of it,
it's brilliant, isn't
there
it?
is this passage that I just wanted to share, which is this: to see so many at Wembley and on the streets of Coventry was fantastic for everyone connected with the club. I wrote us a letter to the supporters earlier in the week, and at the same time, I wrote to Lord Mayor of Coventry. Not the Lord Mayor, but Lord Mayor of Coventry, where I thanked him and the city for the honour of a civic reception. Coventry as a city has such a rich history, which we saw ourselves, as our bus route included the Godiva statue, the cathedral police, and of course, St Mary's Guildhall, where Shakespeare performed and Mary Queen of Scots was imprisoned.
Yeah. Blinkington Hall was built in the 1890s.
Yeah, it's like one of those sort of Partridge moments, like that bit in Partridge where he's talking about Valentine's Day, and then and moves on to where the diners' evenings was ruined when Al Capone massacred them. It's just that unnecessary extra fact.
I mean, you say unnecessary, but it warmed my heart, absolutely.
So, do you think he was still drunk?
I think that's. I get a strong Partridge vibe from him. He's very much a dad's dad, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna quickly throw mine in. Neil, you sort of briefly touched on it, but the one thing that would make you more prouder as a Cov fan to be a Cov fan than 4 different academy products scoring over 2 games at Wembley. It's Johnson Clark Harris getting kicked out of the collie for singing Cov songs in the garden. I'm not sure it gets any better than that. I just like the idea that maybe he was annoyed that fans weren't singing enough of them, And so he led the charge himself to the point where they felt. And imagine how difficult it would have been to have been a COV player getting kicked out of a nightclub that night. You'd have thought there'd have been some sort of absolute like mutiny in there, wouldn't you? But no, apparently they were just. Although as maybe I'm surprised that he's not barred from every nightclub in COV for a start. But that was yeah. I mean, that is just delightful, isn't it, as a story? He was in high spirits after winning the League Two playoff final, I think, wasn't he, Neil?
Yes, he was.
And it's a game that you're going to talk us through.
Oh, the old playoff final that I don't reckon many people remember, judging by just how drunk pretty much everybody was. I mean, the checker trade was fun and people were having a bit of a drink, but literally, we were playing a game of how many people fell down the stairs next to us. My dad couldn't focus on the game because he had to basically protect people. He was getting really annoyed by this because everybody was like on the verge of kind of cracking their head open, and it must have been got to about 15 by the end of the match. It was ludicrous, but the match itself was very good and very easy, dare I say.
Can I quickly just jump in on the subject of pissed up COV fans? This is something that I saw this week and that I'd missed previously. Did anyone see that Sky Sports report with that guy that ambushed the reporter?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
There was it that I think it was the standard sort of thing where he was like dancing behind him or whatever, and then he shoots him a bit of a dirty look and he says to him, cheer up, mate, it's a fucking day out.
Yeah. Like, this is my job.
So needlessly belligerent. Sorry, pick it up from there.
Well, we're talking about winning at Wembley, weren't we? Yeah. I don't know which angle to take with this one, because you could talk about the game, but there's still
I want a full hour analysis of the first half.
That first half.
Yeah, I basically I want it to be like 3 hours in and you're going, and then in the 12th minute.
I'm not the right person to be doing this either. No, so it felt different, I think, to the checker trade. I think the first time round it was all very, really sort of joyous and happy. This time around, I think there was an element. There's lots of drunk people, quite a lot of tense people, I thought. And actually, I got caught in the midst of the 300 extra fans walking up Wembley Way. They obviously planned it so they'd all walk up together, and they were being really angry. And I made the mistake of wearing blue on that day, God's sake. And I got a few bad looks, a few old people swearing at me and stuff, and all I was doing was walking to Wembley. But yeah, they timed it very well, and they were very, very angry. So that didn't put me in a very good mood as I was walking into Wembley. But then obviously you turn up and everybody's very happy to be there, and you kind of. A lot of people are drunk, so I couldn't tell what was going on. But I was within myself, so I kind of was just sort of stood there, wondering how the match was going to go. And let's face it, I think we pretty much dominated it. We looked the better team pretty much throughout. I was oddly calm throughout the whole match. I just thought there was. I think Doyle said it afterwards. I don't know if anybody's seen the interview with him kind of in the dressing room, but he sort of said he was pretty calm with that. He just felt like they could handle whatever extra had to throw at us, and I was very much the same. So throughout the match, I just sort of you looked at that team which had carried on from the Notts County game, where there was suddenly a lot of trust from the sides looking at that team, thinking, yeah, this is probably our best 11, and it was just. Throughout the match, even though we didn't score in the first half, I just felt, yeah, we're the strong team. There was some really good passing moves. You had McNulty was showing some great touches. He wasn't quite on it, but he was still showing sort of a lot of class. What else happened in that first half?
I mean, nothing really. That was the problem, wasn't it?
We just kind of. I felt like we had the ball, we controlled it. There was that one ridiculously long sort of 20-30 pass move where we actually started cheering, and then McNulty scuffed the shot. But I just felt it was a very sort of measured. It was kind of tense, but at the same time, it was all within our control that first half. Does anybody want to jump in before I quickly skip over?
I'd say that I thought we were the better team for the first 20-25 minutes, and then Stokes went off with a cut head.
Yes.
And I thought that disrupted us for a bit, and I thought in terms of, I thought we were on top sort of 55-45. I don't think we didn't really create much. I don't think we really stretched them. I think, to be fair to Exeter, I think Exeter weren't that bothered where we had the ball a lot of the time. I think they knew that we were going to have a lot of the ball. So I think, to some extent, the first half was very even. I think it sort of played out almost as... I thought it was going to be either an absolute classic or they were going to cancel each other out. In the first half, I thought they cancelled each other out. I thought after Stokes' injury, Exeter sort of took the ascendancy, but again, probably 52-48. They didn't dominate, but after that point, they were marginally more offensive than they had been prior to that. But I thought first half, I don't know if you've seen the vlog, the guy, the Brighton fan, who happened to be stood right behind us. He said, so at half time, he said the only thing keeping this game going is the fans. Because they just cancelled each other out. It was quite a dry first half, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was, although
within themselves, weren't they? And I really strongly felt like it was one of those situations where neither of them wanted to concede the first goal, and particularly in those conditions, it was so hot, wasn't it? And I don't think that you can underestimate the effect that would have had on the game. Like, particularly the feeling that you don't want to be chasing a game in that sort of heat. So I thought that was partially responsible for the caution.
I think they did give us a lot of space, though. But, I mean, maybe that was kind of part of their plan. They kind of allowed us that opportunity to kind of, not knock ourselves out, but run with the ball. Because there was plenty of times, I thought, where Shipley had the ball and he could have held on to it for a kind of a good 10-20 seconds, because there was no really sort of engaging him. But actually, there was one point when he drove on and then he had a good shot. Sorry, Joe.
No. All I was going to say is I agree with Ed, and I think that the second half almost proves it. That game, I think both teams knew that going one goal, but obviously it counts in every game, but that in that game particularly, going one goal behind would kill the other, because both teams were hoping that the other team would come out a bit more. And the nature of, I know that our goals were very strange goals, but that we really got back into that game because they were forced to make that double substitute. Well, not got back into the game. We controlled the second half because they had to make that attacking substitution. It just totally played into our hands, didn't it? It was everything that we wanted. It was almost, obviously I don't care, but they were almost unfortunate that their goal they conceded came from a bizarre centre back on the edge of the area belting one in. Like, there's not really much you can do to mitigate for that, is there? But it completely blew the game apart for them, didn't it? And I think you're right. I think we had plenty of time on the ball, but Exeter were really compact and defensive, weren't they? But I thought that really, like Paul says, once Stokes had gone off, that completely flipped on its head, and we had to sit back and let them come at us a little bit because we didn't want to concede. But it really felt in that first half, I felt like a goal could have gone either way, despite the fact that there weren't a tremendous amount of chances.
Well, I seem to remember in the second half, sorry, skipping forward for about 20 minutes, but when we were 2-0 up, the stats came up on the screen, and Exeter had like 54% possession. It sort of, the second half, after we scored the second, we were sort of, we allowed Exeter to do basically what Exeter had done to us in the first half. It's like, you can have the ball because we're not overly worried about you.
But as well, we were looking to hit them on the break, weren't we?
At that point, yeah. I mean, we were just...
We got really lucky by the end of the season. This is going to sound horrible to Robin. I think it was fortunate, as far as I'm concerned, that we clicked into being the team that we've been best as at the absolute right time at the end of the season, didn't we? I think that we picked Notts County off in the second leg because we scored early, and then used the fact that they had to come at us really badly against them, and most of our goals came from us on the break. Those other 3 goals all came because we broke really well. And I thought the playoff final was the same, wasn't it? And that's how that team is set up to be useful, I think, at its best. And so I think if Exeter had have held us at bay, I don't I think it took a Jordan Willis belter to put us ahead, didn't it, under those circumstances?
Well, yeah, and then compounded by the fact that we got a second immediately after it.
Yeah, that was a real bastard for him, wasn't it? I mean, brilliant from Shipley.
Well, no, it was a great break, and it was a decent strike.
And as well, it's why have a shot.
Yeah.
Get a shot in, yeah.
I also think we started the second half really well, and we had a couple of chances before. Yeah, Jordan Willis's goal isn't the player. I think quite a few people didn't realise it was Jordan Willis when he actually hit it. I think a lot of people thought it was Biamu, because it was like, well, there's no way Willis has just hit that. But just before that, we got the corner from a great shot from McNulty. I think we started the second half.
Yeah.
Very, very well. I think it was no surprise that we took the lead, having had I don't think they really had an attack before we scored the first, and I don't think they'd had an attack before we got the second. I think we went for them to start the second half, and by the time you're 2-0 up, then you've earned that right then to sort of play the game out how you want. But I think McNulty, I think he had one or two shots right early at the start, which led to the corner, which was why Willis was up there. I mean, it wasn't a fluke in terms of Willis wasn't up there because he had decided to do some manic run. He wasn't turning into Matthias Sammer. He was up there because we had been on top. One of the things we talk about a lot is we were having sustained pressure at the start of the second half. We were camped in their half. The fact that he then pulled that strike out of his ass, that can happen. That could have gone anywhere. It will the next time he has a shot. He's probably safer to be in the goal than anywhere else in the ground. But it was a wonderful strike.
I actually would quite like to see Jordan Willis turn into Matthias Sammer. I think if he has anything to focus on this summer, I think he should perhaps
dye his hair ginger.
Well, set himself a personal goal of becoming Matthias Sammer over the course of the summer. I just think it'd be good for him.
I always knew he had it in him. That great strike.
I thought you were going to say you'd be interested in seeing him conduct a controlled experiment in which he attempted to actually do that again, and you stood in the goal mouth.
Neil, pick that up from somewhere in there.
Somewhere. Start of second half, I guess. One thing I noticed, because I think it's quite easy to spot some players who maybe a little bit overawed by the occasion and some players who kind of settle quicker. I think a few players who were a little bit sort of jittery in the first half were Grimmer, and as well as I thought Shipley kind of did in an attacking sense. I think there were many times where he allowed the occasion to make the pass for him in that first half. But I think when they came out the second half, like Paul said, I think there was they kind of settled pretty early on. They adjusted to the whole sort of experience quite well. Grimmer became a decent threat. Bayliss especially suddenly realised, actually, I've got quite a bit of time on the ball. I'm just going to take my time with it. And I think he was the one who set up the chance for McNulty, wasn't he, just for the goal, where he took the ball on, did a couple of little sort of drop of the shoulders and rolled it back. And just on the Willis goal, it was just the goal itself. I think pretty much everybody thought it was Biamu at that point. But the celebration afterwards was utter carnage, wasn't it? I don't know where you guys were sat, but around
you can watch our celebration on the vlog.
Is there a video?
A Brighton fan was stood literally the seat behind us, and you just basically turns the camera at one point, and you could just see our group going ballistic.
Oh, post it.
It's been posted. It's on YouTube. Yeah, we'll post it again. It's basically, if you fast forward to obviously just after the half time, because he doesn't do the whole game. I think it's about 15, 20 minutes long, but you can then skip to the goals. Basically, he doesn't turn around to our side as he does very quickly, and he turns to the other side more to his right. We were more to his left. But yeah, you sort of basically you see all it is his arms and legs. Personally, I celebrated harder for the second.
Yeah, because
it was like the second was like that. That's probably it. That's game dead. And it was just the whole Willis one, because he just turned and hit it. It was almost a bit of shock. But the Shipley one, when the ball was laid in front of him, you were like, if he hits this properly, that's it. You could the anticipation of that second one was it was right in front of us. As soon as you hit it, it took the deflection, and you were just like that. you're celebrating before it's in the back of the net, and for me, that was the one I went most for.
And
The
second
of those videos is good because you can actually see Paul's young daughter fly screaming past the camera. And it's both very funny and also of interest to social services.
To be fair to Mary, this time she didn't turn to me and go, "Daddy, what happened?" I think she's a year older. She's learned that basically if everyone goes mental, we scored a goal. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
I mean, it was interesting, those celebrations, wasn't it? I mean, the first one was basically there's like a group of, I think about 12 of us actually, like my family and then a load of my friends behind us, and my mate's girlfriend had just bought some popcorn, and then we scored, and that £5 popcorn went absolutely everywhere, which she was not pleased about. But it was really weird. It was one of those celebrations where you kind of, at a Rico, you're going mental, but there's kind of a reservation because there's not that many people around you that you know, so you kind of keep it constrained. When you guys obviously had that big group around you, it was just, there was real clambering on seats to grab anybody you vaguely knew. And those first 2 goals absolutely knackered me out. And I wrote a little bit of a blog about this because while they knackered me out and I was euphoric, at the same time there was a different kind of feeling. I was like happy to be able to go mental about it, but at the same time I was kind of, we scored at Wembley, but I kind of felt like it was already coming. So it was a surreal kind of moment. The third goal, not to jump too far ahead, I was just too knackered, just exhausted to celebrate. I was just stood there in absolute disbelief that Grimmer just scored that goal, and it was just 3-0 at Wembley. And suddenly it was that moment you think, shit, we're going up. I didn't quite know how to deal with it. It was just, I was a little bit numb. I just jumped up and you're like, all this, you've got an entire season comes down to this moment, and I'm stood there like a dickhead, not doing anything, and everybody else is going crazy. And it was odd, but I think it was just overwhelming sort of happiness. It was like, oh, this is what happiness feels like. This is it. This is great.
We also
it's like, this is why we do it. Shit, there is actually a reason for us.
There's an end game, yeah.
Yeah, this is why we go to Accrington away. This is why we travel all those miles. This is why you sort of, this is why you do it. And as you say, it's to some extent, if we'd have won promotion at the Rico, as much as I'd like to have gone up top, we probably were still not sold out the ground. There'd have been people there who probably still wouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
And because it was at Wembley, and it's sort of, and I've had a couple of discussions with people. It's like, oh, you know, we can get 40,000 to Wembley. And it's like, we're never going to. People will go to Wembley who won't go to. Yeah, it's a different thing. And it's like there are people. You probably have 5,000, 10,000 Cov fans who might go to 2 or 3 games a season, but they're all going to turn up at Wembley. So let's be, you know, let's embrace it. It was the atmosphere. Say everyone was sort of drunk. I think, sort of just going back to Rory's start, I thought because we'd been to Wembley last year, it felt different because it wasn't so like, shit, this is Wembley. It was like, oh, we've been here, we've won here. This is like, we're in the same fan zone we're in last year. This is sort of, it's not an event coming to Wembley. Last year was about going to Wembley. It was like, great, we won the Checkatrade, but it was all about, let's go to Wembley and have a good day out. This year it was like, let's have a good day out. Yeah, we're going to Wembley, but this game means a lot. This is important. And I think that was what but having last year's experience, I think, made things a lot easier for everyone. It was we're in the same end where we had won last season. It was like, oh, this feels right. This doesn't feel, and you can sort of see from the Exeter fans' point of view, who'd lost last season, you could sort of understand why. Not that it probably influenced the players at all, but some of the Cov players played here last season. Jordan Willis picked up the cup. Mark Robbins was here when we won. It's, you know, that's what Mourinho talks about a lot. It's just like winning that first trophy, just getting that experience. Yeah. Just once you've got it, once you know you sort of how to play it, the journey down, everything that comes with going to Wembley and having that cup final experience. We've had it within the last year and we've won it, and you've got other players like Doyle who've experienced promotion, and you could sort of see, I sort of agree with Neil, it's like the players, I think a couple of them did start off quite slowly, and one of the things I said to Joey after the game is, last season Checkatrade, you could pick 2 or 3 men of the match. For me, no one stood out. I was no 10 out of 10, but everyone sort of did their job. It was it was a team, like Burge did everything right. The defence did everything right. The midfield, it looked like a cohesive unit, which, to be fair, against Notts County at home, you weren't sure if it was going to click. And the biggest stage of all, the most important game of the season, it absolutely clicked. Everything worked. And then there's you're so pleased with people like Biamu for the journey he's been on this season, where McNulty's gone through with him not being able to score and then getting man of the match at Wembley, even though he didn't score, is that must be a big thing for him. I say the way that Johnson Clark-Harris was celebrating, and again Jordan Willis, Jordan Shipley scoring a goal and getting all the accolades he's got. He's just it's probably given us more of a momentum into next season than if we'd have gone up second or third. Because it's galvanised everyone. Everyone's now convinced we're an absolutely brilliant team, and it's just we're okay, but at least it's we've sold 6,000 season tickets. Things are in a forward momentum, and that comes down to Mark Robbins and his backroom staff and the players and the delight they showed in winning promotion.
Absolutely. I feel like unless Neil has got anything he desperately wants to say about the remaining stroll through the last 20 minutes at Wembley or the goal that we conceded, perhaps we move on from trying to analyse it as a game, because it was an odd game to try and pick out. It was just joyous though, wasn't it?
Anybody else share my feeling that popcorn is an inappropriate snack to eat at football?
Well,
I just think generally salted popcorn, is that not the driest food ever anyway?
Yeah.
You sit there grazing away, nothing actually going down. I just end up with a mouthful of grump.
It's also the incongruity of it, isn't it? It's like I wouldn't eat popcorn at the football in the same way I wouldn't stand up and shout, "What was that, you wanker?" in the cinema. It's just weird. But do you call that acting, you prick?
Did you see Batman and Robin at the cinema? If you
Yes.
seen Batman and Robin, then you would have probably said, "What the fuck is that?" Arnie, stop with the jokes.
The main problem with eating popcorn at football is the implication that it's somehow entertainment.
Yeah.
Rather than kind of, lifelong attritional masochism.
Yeah, misery.
Yeah. Right, we're going to sort of do a whistle-stop tour through the whole season. But that rather than going through and agonisingly scrutinising every game that we played, we've got some little questions to go through and fire around each other. Question one: So I've asked these questions in advance. Hopefully you've prepared answers. I asked who would have been your team of the year, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you mine and ask where people would deviate from it. So I've gone for Burge in goal, Grimmer at right back, McDonald, Willis, Stokes at left back. Question mark there. It'd be interesting to see whether anyone's gone for.
You'd go for McDonald over Davis. Sorry, that wasn't meant to be a yawn. I wasn't bored.
It is quite boring. I would go for McDonald over Davis. I love Davis's banter.
Season long.
I love Davis's banter, but obviously I want more than that from a footballer. Although
I think
not
Davis's overall, I think win ratio is better than McDonald.
Don't get lured into those stats, Paul. Most of they're 3-minute long appearances. Much of those.
Mm-hmm. And you go for Hyam as well.
I'd have Davis above, and my opinion on Dave. I think McDonald can be a really good footballer, but I was shocked by how little we missed him when he was injured. And I think at times we have missed Davis. I think we've missed when the way that Davis could play at this level. I think we've missed him more than we've missed McDonald. But
I just think it's a short. One, I think it's a short memory, because there were times where we were saying he's one of the best defenders in the league. And secondly, I think that Davis, you're absolutely right. There are circumstances in which Davies offers something that makes him a much better option than McDonald. But they're niche tactical things, aren't they? Admittedly, niche tactical things makes it sound like there's some sort of nuance to it, as apart from heading the ball really hard and being tall. But that is kind of, if you're playing Notts County, you need Davis. But for most of the games, you want McDonald, really, don't you?
Nobody. Hyam.
I mean, Hyam was fantastic in that running, wasn't he? But then there was also games where he wasn't particularly good, and he probably only played 10 games in total, didn't he? I just think McDonald played about 30-odd games and was excellent for probably 25 of them. I think it'd be unfair. If anything, he would be the top centre back for me, and then the question is whether it's Willis or Davis rather than McDonald or Davis.
But Joey, you're making the terrible mistake of judging this player across a number of games instead of judging it on your most recent memory of him.
I mean, yeah, I've let myself down there. I'll be the first.
Call yourself a football fan.
Anyone who we've not mentioned who
I would have thrown in Ryan Haynes.
You'd have put Hainesy in.
I like him at left back. I think he played really well actually this year. Just didn't play the last few games. And Stokes did very well, but Haynes for me.
It doesn't surprise me that he's brought in a new left back.
Yeah,
I don't think he trusts either of them.
Yeah,
and the fact
that's a good point.
He signed one within a week. I think it's really, I think that explains a lot about.
Yeah, that looks like a really good addition, doesn't it?
Or I think football. You can only really go off what other football, not what Coventry fans say, because Coventry fans believe every new signing's. The Coventry fans believe everyone you've sold is crap, and the next new signing's brilliant. But the Shrewsbury fans speak very highly of him, and so.
The thing that I saw that made me laugh, Paul, was that I did my usual thing of checking out Shrewsbury fans' reactions and stuff, and I saw one person that I had assumed to be a Cov fan had said, best left back in League One, fact. And I remember sneering at it and thinking, you probably haven't even fucking seen him. And then it turned out to be a Shrewsbury player that
the teammate.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, fair dues, you might have a right to an opinion then. I looked at it, I was like, this is typical of Cov fans, they haven't even seen him. Yeah. Hypocrisy much. Midfield, I've gone for Jones, Bayliss, Doyle, Shipley. The obvious one there that's missing is Kelly. Would anyone have put Kelly in above any of those players?
Can I have Jones on the left, Bayliss on the right, and Kelly in them? I know we've all had our issues with Kelly.
That's not
we've all had our issues with Kelly this season, but his performance again. I know I'm going on the one performance scenario, but his one performance against Notts County, I think is one of the best central midfield. Is probably the best central midfield performance of the season. I think he was so good against Notts County, and if you can get that out of him, then I think you can't not play him.
And for that reason, he goes in above Jordan Shipley.
Yeah, and with Jones on the left.
Paul, I'm with you on that.
Can't we have 5?
Thanks, Ed. That's why you're back on.
You can. I mean, you absolutely can, Neil, if that's the lineup of your team.
But I also want 2 up front.
I mean, that doesn't work, obviously.
Drop a defender.
It's a good new tactic. And then, probably uncontroversially, I've gone for Bayliss and McNulty up front. In fact, before we move on to those two,
Bayliss,
anyone
that is
else?
Controversial.
Oh yeah, sorry. Of course, I mean Biamu and McNulty. Yes. Before we move on to those two, any other midfield mentions that we've missed? Jordan Barrett, Vincenzi. Poor old Vincenzi.
Ben Stevenson made 2 starts and 3 sub appearances.
Ben Stevenson, Premiership football,
lovely player.
Premiership footballer Ben Stevenson.
Jordan Maguire-Drew made 3 starts.
Apparently, did his appendix burst, or was that a joke that Laurie had made?
That's a
good joke.
It's probably a joke.
Not one of his wittiest.
Yeah.
And then there's Anthony Drew, obviously, who made 2 starts and 3 sub appearances. Josh Barrett.
Did he say that his appendix burst while he was at a Pizza Hut all-you-can-eat buffet? Because if so, that was almost certainly a joke.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think he said that his appendix burst laughing at my hilarious blog. That didn't happen either. So Biamu and McNulty. No one going for JCH. No place for Duck in anyone's team.
You forgot about. No, I think overall impact. Biamu has come to life, hasn't he?
Did anyone see that picture of the Duck with Messi?
Yeah.
Oh man,
he was loving that.
That is top notch.
Second highest goal scorer still though, the Duck. With 6 goals.
Hey, he massive impact on our season. I loved him. Get a maniac.
And then Biamu and Bayliss scored 5 apiece. I mean, with Jones also scoring 5.
Yeah.
The Bayliss is, for me, I don't think I can speak highly enough of Bayliss. Bevan made 9 starts and 5 sub appearances for his no goals.
Yeah, I mean, is he making it up front in your team of the season now?
If I would literally drive him, I would drive down to Cardiff and take him anywhere he wants to go. I want to go to south of France. It's all right, Bevan. Let's go.
I listened to the first pod of the season. We say some positive things about Bevan. What are we on about?
Tom, well, it was a different time back then.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk a lot of shit, don't we? I think. I mean, this will probably all be obsolete within a couple of months.
Defo.
Right, favourite game, non-playoff game. Does anybody want to venture a starting point?
Yeah, I want to do this. Basically, on the 24th of February, we were in 10th place, and we were 5 points out of the playoffs, and we played Mansfield away, who were 9 points ahead of us. And we went down to 10 men after about 10 minutes and went 1-0 down, and we equalised. And that I believe that game against Mansfield and the fallout from that with Steve Evans leaving and all the other jazz that went on was absolutely critical in our season. Because the games before that, we'd lost 3 of the previous 4 games. No, we'd lost the last 3 games before that, losing to Forest Green, Accrington and Colchester, and our season was properly stumbling at that point. And after that, we only lost 3 more games. We went, after that, we really turned it round, and our season got back on its merry little way. But that Mansfield game, and I think if you went to the Mansfield game, you'll know what I mean by, I think it changed everyone's attitude as well.
Yeah.
It galvanised you. It was the first time this season, especially because the Colchester game, only the week before, we had got it back to 1-1 and then lost in the last 5 minutes, and you were unsure about the intelligence of the team, if a team could sort of fight or had the battle. But that Mansfield game really did show that there was something about that team, and that team could graft and could work, and when things were going against them, they didn't go into their shell. They could fight and get something out of it. And that for me, a bizarre 1-1 draw away at Mansfield is probably up there with in my top 3 games of the season.
I completely agree with you. I also think the thing to say about that is that when the going gets tough, you need people to stand up. And in that game, the players really that stuck out of it were Bayliss and Shipley, who were just children, really. And that 1-0 down. After 1-0 down and 10 men on 19 minutes, I think. The pair of them stepped up and just completely they stood up to that midfield dominance in such an incredible way, didn't they? And I think, like you say, weirdly, it was coming out of that game so unbelievably positive, because you were like, wow, they're really up for it then.
And then the next game we beat Wickham, and it was like, because those 2 games were massive. It was the Saturday and the Tuesday, Mansfield and Wickham, both of them at that point were, well, I said Mansfield were 9 points ahead of us. If they've gone on to win that game, they're 12 points ahead of us. Wickham were 12 points ahead of us. It's, and we'd have been 6 points outside the playoffs. Momentum's gone. So, yeah. And to be fair, I've got to give credit to Robbins. He kept 2 up front. He kept 3 in midfield. We didn't sit back and try and protect that 1-0 defeat. We went for it. And, on another day, Mansfield would have, they had chances, but the second half, we were by far the better team. And we fully deserved that. And that, as I said, that for me, that was massive.
Can I throw Luton into the mix?
Yes, there we
go. Luton away. If anything, just for Jordan Shipley's free kick, which it's got lost in the sort of FIFA goals from Biamu, but so good.
That's still travelling now, ain't it, that shot?
Oh, God,
it's
that's
just
a bastard of a kick.
It's just rotating in the air in that top corner, just constantly perpetual motion, keeping it going. Delish.
It was just like its first impact for us as well. That was the first we really saw of Jordan Shipley. That's what way to announce yourself.
Who else scored in that game? Did Nason score in that game?
Yeah,
he must have got the third, did he? Yeah. Oh, a 3-0 away win at Luton. McNulty, Nason and Shipley. That's a great...
McNulty, Shipley and Nason.
That's a great day out.
And we hadn't won in the 4 before that, and we hadn't scored in the 4 games before that either.
Brilliant stuff. Ed, favourite game?
Well, it's difficult for me because I only did about 10 games last season, and I reckon that before the playoffs, the best that I'd seen was the 0-0 against Barnet. So I find it hard to judge.
That was fucking drab as well.
It felt like a funny old season for me.
I had a similar thing. I don't think I'd barely seen us win up until Christmas. I'd been to Barnet away and Chesterfield away, which were both 0-0 away draws. The Accrington away, I was at Newport at home with that freak goal.
I think my last 3 away victories were 2 at Wembley and 1 at Notts County.
Yeah, it's quite something, isn't it? But so you're picking out Barnet away as your pick of
Barnet 0-0. Yeah.
I'm going to round things off by saying the Swindon game at home, which I just thought was a really good game of football to watch by two teams who had got a plan, and it looked like, and we rode. I like it if we go ahead. It's the dream for me. Go ahead, withstand a bit of pressure, pop up with another goal, close things down. That's a lovely set menu for me of an ideal game. I thought that Swindon was just really, really good. I thought McNulty's third was fabulous to sort of turn the tide back in our favour. And it was just one of them rare times where you come away from having watched Cov play a game where you just go, I actually enjoyed watching that. That was like a spectacle and an enjoyable game. Conversely, lowest point. Paul, did you start us off last time?
Lowest point. There were quite a few.
Well, that was not the question, Paul. But okay.
All right, I'm going to go for a weird one because we won the game, but
still not the question.
All right, shut up. Barnet at home when we won 1-0 in one of the worst games I've seen, where we just looked so which was only 2 games after the Mansfield game. We looked so disorganised, and we barely managed to beat, at that point, a truly woeful Barnet team. And you were like, the chance is there to get in the playoffs. We've got to be far better than this, because it was a horrid game of football.
Neil?
It's one of two. It's either the Yeovil defeat or the Lincoln defeat, both because they put huge dents in what I was still counting down to automatics at that point. And those
10 goals really put a dent in it.
A little bit, yeah. They kind of it started to fade under the lights a little bit, that dream. So no, one of those games just because I was always planning for automatics this season. Didn't matter in the end.
Do you still consider this season to be a failure, having not gone up automatically?
I would concede that he's done an okay job.
Ed, your lowest point, which if you anything based on your favourite game, is probably what?
Well, actually, I'm going to take, and I agree with one of Neil's, but I'm choosing it for poetic reasons, which is that the lowest point was the Lincoln 4-2, but it's also the point during Mark Robbins's amazing rant after that game that Wembley success was assured.
Built on, yeah.
People say, correlation doesn't always equal causation. It does in this case. After that rant, everything improved.
You're not going to lose your job. You're not going to lose your job.
Yeah. It was so good, wasn't it? It was so good. I think any time that somebody in football is using the phrase absolute disgrace about their own player, I want to be seeing that happening.
The only time where I don't want to see that happen is that the player even though he was only here for a very short amount of time, the player that seemed to annoy him more than any other this season was Nason, weren't it? It was like he'd signed Nason as this mercurial, oddball, and then every time he had the temerity to have a run or a shot, you could see Robbins grinding his teeth into a fine paste, just hooking him at half time. He's just like, I told you full well you should have been defended. It's just like, what do you think he is? But yeah, he has.
But you're right. He started to make during that interview after the Lincoln game. He was making existential comments about the players. It was it was this sort of thing, wasn't it? Of if you can't do that, you shouldn't be playing football. I mean, it was fundamentally questioning their right to a career.
Yeah, quite. I have plumped for... What have I plumped for? I think the Notts County away game in the league, because it smelt so much like us throwing away other things, and it's weird because I'm used to that smell happening in like November, where you've been 8th for a bit, and you think that you might be going up the table, and you don't. To be that late in the day, I just thought we don't have it in us. I'm not sure that this is a really significant test, and we haven't come up to it. And then likewise, I think similar with what you're saying about Lincoln, and then just strangely we did. Let's bring the tone up considerably by going on to my favourite category in this set, top Doyle moment. Paul.
He's so much hatred for an opposing player that he scores a 40-yard screamer.
Perhaps explain that for anyone who wasn't listening to the pod a few weeks ago.
Basically, the tackle he went in with the Wickham player is he wasn't a big fan of the Wickham player, and he went in to make sure the Wickham player knew that he'd been in a challenge, but inadvertently scored a 40-yard screamer off the other side of the bar in one of the greatest goals you're ever going to see live. So, there were other ones which, like his tackle against Mansfield, where he basically tried to decapitate someone. He did a couple of other ones in quite dodgy situations. The fact he hasn't been sent off all season is up there. Is just amazing. But yeah, the Wickham goal, just because if ever a player scored with a tackle, it had to be Doyle.
I mean, what was brilliant about that was the fact that when it happened, we had joked about the fact that had been a tackle, and then you got that intel that was like, no, it really was a tackle gone wrong. Because you've mentioned it, I'm going to chuck mine in, but mine is undoubtedly his reaction to Willis getting sent off against Mansfield, where you're looking for your captain to kind of be like, guys, it's 19 minutes, we've got to keep our heads. His reaction was that literally as soon as the game kicked off again, is he tried to like kill someone. There was the first opportunity that he got. He just tried to full out murder someone on the pitch, and then in typical Doyle style got up and was like, I literally don't know what you're concerned about.
He just like ran up to the ref, giving him an earful.
He's like,
the referee thought, I can't send him off because I've just seen the tackle he's done, but I can't send him off because he's just going to get really angry.
I felt like it was very much a kicking Bishop Brennan up the arse moment, where the ref was just be like, but he couldn't have. It's their captain. He couldn't have made that tackle straight afterwards. I just love Bayliss and Shipley looking up to him, being like, "Oh, Dad, what are you like?"
You just wonder what Robbins' reaction on the side would have been to that. Because I think he's a little bit scared of him.
I think he's got to be, hasn't he? Yeah.
Michael, please don't do this.
There was that thing, weren't there, about Ferguson and Cantona, where Ferguson never really had control over Cantona, weren't there? Yeah. Basically, Cantona used to be able to like smoke fags and just do whatever the fuck he wanted.
The classic example of that was actually the post-Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
After he'd assaulted the fan, and they were all in the dressing room, and apparently he was turning to all the Man United players, he's saying, Pallister, fucking shit defending, didn't win a header all match. Bruce, the same, shit, you shouldn't be playing. Just turns to Cantona and goes, Eric, you can't do that.
Can't get away with that, son.
Can't do that. Yeah. Very much.
As Eric smokes a cigarette.
Yeah.
Oh, boss.
Neil, your top Doyle moment.
Goal from a tackle.
It's got to be goal from a tackle.
Although I did actually really like, I keep going wrong about the interview after the game where they went into the dressing room, and for the first time all season, I think he finally relaxed, and he was just laughing and joking about drinking seawater and stuff before the game, and it was like, yeah, good man, he's relaxed now.
Not for health reasons, but as a dare.
Yeah. I get the sense from Doyle that he's very much a horsehair shirt around the house kind of guy, isn't he?
Definitely.
Constant penance. Ed, Doyle.
I'm going to go for his attempt at Paul Scholesing one in, direct from a corner.
Oh, shit.
I can't remember who it was against, and he shanked it straight back out for a goal kick. In fact, no, it might even have gone out for a throw.
You've actually just jogged my memory on another classic Doyle moment, which was, I think it was in the Lincoln game, where he took a kick off and kicked it straight out for a goal kick.
That was brilliant. That was sort of, this is how football works. I'm going to kick this as hard as I can.
And what I really like as well is the sense after he's made one of those really catastrophic errors that he's really close to just turning around and bollocking someone else.
Yeah.
I think my other favourite moment of Doyle is the fact that you get over the last 5 years, 10 years, basically since Doyle joined, we've had like hundreds of players, and it was quite nice that it was Doyle who lifted the trophy at Wembley. Someone you could tell he's won promotion of the clubs, but you could tell that actually meant a lot to him, and it's nice that you adopt these players who come through and they play for you and they sort of develop a bit of affinity. And just, I know the Doyle song has become a bit of an anthem, but I think he it shows our appreciation for him, and it's quite nice when you've got that connection to a player.
Yeah.
And I was really glad that we were always fans of Doyle. We appreciated the fact he had his weaknesses, but we did appreciate him, what he gave to the team.
Of course.
And for him to come back and prove after all these years that it was Stephen Hughes who was holding him back.
Right.
I wasn't a fan, which makes it all the more pleasing that, and I love him because he kind of needed to come back to prove me wrong almost. And yeah.
Why were you not a fan? Very quickly.
I didn't think you were very good.
Oh God, yeah, that.
But that was the championship.
Great answer.
Yeah. Okay, next favourite goal, Paul.
This Shipley's at Wembley. Just that's the killer. That's the one that I knew we were going to get promoted. That's it, really. I'm that superficial.
Ed.
McNulty, Notts County, second leg of the playoff. Just a massive goal and a really good goal as well in a hugely important game.
Oh, all four of those goals. Was the first one was the overhead kick, weren't it? All four of those goals were an absolute joy to watch. That will come on to this later, but I'm not including any of those in favourite goal, but for a reason. Neil?
For what it meant, the overhead kick in the semi-final, I've never celebrated a goal like I did celebrate that. I wasn't even at the match. It was insane. But I also want to throw in Biamu's volley against Yeovil. That one, just how good it was, but also kind of the defiance it set up within me. Realised when he scored that goal, I was like, actually, yeah, he's going to score another 5. He's going to do it himself, and he didn't ultimately, but it was just something really, really good about that goal and the way he came on that pitch. And it's like, well, if you're going to be crap, I'm not. I'm gonna do it myself.
Honourable mentions to all of the overhead kicks, which from now on are being referred to as Biamu's.
Yes.
And not just that, as by extension, the word bicycle has been removed from the English language. So now I'm riding my Biamu to work. In Amsterdam, there's a proliferation of Biamus. There are 9 million Biamus in Beijing. But I'm going to, like I say, we'll come on to the Notts County one in a second. But for me, for pure aesthetics, for what I want from football, and I banged on about it all the time this season, was that second against Grimsby, where where Bayliss murders someone, Doyle sprays it to Johnson Clark-Harris, who bursts through, rolls into McNulty, and within about a split second, we just killed them. That was the point where I was like, "That's this team. That is the team that could do something to." And I knew then that we were going up through the playoffs. No, not quite. Right, favourite player, not best player, not player of the season. Who's been your favourite player this season, Paul?
Bayliss.
It seems daft asking why.
He's just, I have a general love for central midfielders going back to the first World Cup I really remember, which was 1990, where you had Gaza and Mateus and Hollett and players like that. Bayliss is just, I think his emergence, especially when the moment we lost Jones, the fact that he sort of stepped into the shoes and at times dragged us forward, and the fact he's got 5 goals, and that if he'd have scored, our mate Andy was sort of, I think he had chips when we scored the first, and they went everywhere. And I think he was a bit under the cosh when Shipley scored, and he was, I don't think I can handle this. And it's like, you can't, if Bailey scores, you won't be able to handle anything. And then he junked past 3 players and had his shot saved. And you were like, if that had gone in, mate, you would have just been, I don't know what would have happened. You'd have been in deep trouble, because at that moment you were like, okay, Bayliss is on the biggest stage of his career. He's just done something which is truly class.
This, bear in mind, this isn't a criticism of Bayliss, right? Bayliss, I sometimes wonder if you were the other players in that team looking at the attention he gets, you'd be a bit pissed off, because I think Bayliss is about moments, isn't he? He's more of a Gerrard player where he's amazing, but you've got Kelly and Doyle sort of doing all the dog work, and then Bayliss is able to pop up and score that amazing 4th goal against Notts County in a game that he didn't really do a great deal else in, and yet
apart from was involved in 3 of the goals.
But you know what I mean. But this is what I'm saying. This is why I'm saying it's not a criticism of him. He is outstanding in his, like, the impact that he makes. But the thing is that at his age, you have a sense that there's a really good chance that either his output could end up getting higher, so he could actually be scoring more goals or creating more goals, which he's already doing a perfectly good enough job of, or he could be using that aggression more generally throughout the pitch. He really could develop into an absolutely stunning player, couldn't he? He might not, but he's got every bit of potential in the world to be, if with the right coaching and everything, he could be pretty much anything he wants to be, couldn't he?
I'll let other people have wax lyrical on other players. My final comment on Bayliss is, as we've dropped down the divisions, there's certain things you've noticed that are lacking in a lot of players, and we've discussed this quite a lot this season. The amount of times that teams have got into good positions, they've got the opportunity to create a chance, and their final ball is poor. And then you think of things that Bayliss has done this season, like the pass through to Kelly for McNulty's goal. The amount of players in League Two who would have just knocked that out of play. The amount of players in Cov's team who would have knocked that out of play. And he knocked it exactly the position that all Kelly had to do was not even break his stride. And you're like, that is the difference. It's his ability to make the right pass at the right time for someone of his age and his experience makes him stand out. And in the critical moments, he was absolutely brilliant, and he did the right things. And the other player who deserves a lot of credit is obviously Shipley, who again just seems to make a lot of the right decisions. And that Mansfield game we were discussing earlier, that was the point where it's like, okay, I've not got Shipley. I get Shipley now. I get exactly what Shipley's all about. And yeah, I think those two have been absolutely amazing in our running for everything that's gone on around them.
Just one final thing on Bayliss for me, and then I'll let people add. I'm sure that someone else might have him as their pick. But the thing for me was against Crewe away, when in the first half he'd maybe made 2 or 3, exactly what you're describing, burst forward, through ball for somebody who'd spoon it wide and do really poorly with it. And then his reaction was like, fuck you then. And instead just drove through himself and was like, I will just plough through, and then just banged it in the back of the net. You were like, wow, you're really like a lot better than everyone else in League Two, aren't you? This is really about, you tried to let them have a bit of the action. You were like, it's fine, yeah. I'll just do it. You're like, wow, you're good. Ed?
Bayliss. I'm just a real kind of sucker for that sort of play that makes it look completely effortless.
Yeah,
it's just something about how languid he is in his style. Like when I was a little kid, I absolutely loved Chris Waddle, and there's something about the way that he runs with the ball that reminds me a little bit of Waddle. Like he doesn't seem to be doing anything particularly extraordinary, that there aren't really tricks in there and that kind of thing. It's just like the sort of balance and awareness of like his own body and the positioning of the defender and stuff like that. I just love it. I think Joey, we're on a kind of roundhead cavalier divide here, and I think Bayliss is very much like the Cavaliers' choice, isn't he?
In what sense? What
he's like the sort of perfumed handkerchief users player of choice.
No, I don't think he is, because I see him as... Go on.
But I get what you're saying, that you think you're not subscribing to this great men of history theory that I'm pushing, which is really like
no one else is either.
Which is really about moments. But I really love that, and that's what excites me in football. And I think he's somebody who can just conjure up moments that completely sort of transform the game on like a kind of on a level that is not matched by anybody else in that team.
But so where I would disagree, and this is why I think he's got the potential to be quite so special. So one of the questions that we've got in the listeners' questions section later is Bayliss better than Maddison? And I think you almost can't compare them, because Maddison is that flight of fancy creative player, isn't he? That admittedly he still runs games particularly well, but Bayliss is a perfect mixture. And I'm not saying that he's better than Maddison, but for me he's that perfect mixture of, actually he's that modern footballer that's doing everything. He's killing midfielders, he's distributing it simply, he's driving forward, he's scoring goals, like he's everything.
But for me it's a question of aesthetics. Maddison looks like he's trying.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
Maddison looks like he's running around a lot, and he's got a short stride. I hate a player with a short stride.
Neil, I'm going to let you...
I'm going to say, it's like, Ed, just stop poking Neil, because he's going to go mental at you.
Neil's just taking his glove off.
Slapped him round the face. We're not going to finish this pod. There's going to be a duel at midnight. I just want to throw it before Neil comes on. It would have been... I suppose one of the biggest regrets we have for this season is we never saw Jones and Bayliss in the same side.
Woof.
Because that would have given us... That would have freed up Jones, who I think we have to accept for the first 10, 15 games of the season was our catalyst, was the reason we were in the top six. He was by far the best player that we saw from anyone else. I mean, he was head and shoulders above most teams. And in that run of form when we were beating the teams at the top, it was mainly due to him creating something or him scoring something. I think it's such a shame that his season was cut short, because we probably would have sold him in January, because you don't hold on to players in League Two. But Jody Jones had a magnificent season for the time he was fit, and it's like a big shame that those two never got to play together.
Absolutely. Neil, favourite player?
Bayliss and Michael Doyle.
Do you want to share any? I mean, we've already talked about Doyle a fair bit, as we have for every pod this season, I think. Any personal Bayliss memories that you want to share?
I think it's more about me enjoying watching him. So in a similar way to Maddison, there's certain players who you would go and watch play football, and it's just a joy to watch him play football. And I think he's very much got that split between the sort of the sleight of foot and the drop of shoulder, and that really sort of gorgeous looking, sort of effortless football, and then just a blitz into action at any one moment, and knowing that he can leave any player in that league for dead just whenever he kind of wants to. It's a great combo. That's what makes him such a good player. And I think let's hit the Maddison question later, but there's not a comparison there that you can really make.
I agree.
And also Michael Doyle, I don't think we go up without him. I think that team is not the same.
Look, no
Michael Doyle, we do not go up this season. Absolute vital to that team.
We saw with Vincelow that what the benefit of having that destroyer in there makes, and it's astonishing that there aren't more of those around. But there's not, is there? And that there's a very good reason for that. It's because it's a very, very difficult thing to do, to keep kicking all them people and never getting sent off.
But I don't think it's just that, is it? I think for me, and I could be, we'll never know. But for me, one of the reasons the Mowbray season went down the Swanee was when we got rid of Jim O'Brien. And I understand that he was a disruptive force off the pitch, but on the pitch,
he sets the tone.
Always, he sets a tone every time. Jim O'Brien went on the pitch, he set a standard. And sometimes, I go back to this one game, he was bloody awful, but he was still the best player on the pitch, because he was the guy who was almost dragging the team forward, and the rest of the team caught him up and we went on to win. But it was very much a case of, I'm dragging this team. And you got that with Doyle, and we've talked about the Mansfield game, but it was almost like I'm not going to be, we're down to 10 men, but I'm not going to be bullied out of this. I'm still here to fight. And yeah, we got a bit lucky he wasn't sent off, but it set a tone for the rest of the team, and it set a tone for people like Johnson Clark-Harris, and that's where I think he brought us forward towards the end of the season, didn't he? He set standards, and that's what you need. You need someone who can galvanise the team and, again, galvanise the fans. And Doyle's done that. He's united the club in Mickey Doyle, and that's we haven't had a leader for years. Like Winslow was probably the player who could have taken that. You put him alongside Fleck. Fleck was obviously the better player, but you got the feeling that Winslow was the leader of men. Winslow was the man who you would have in your team because you knew what he brought. And it's also the same with Doyle. It's like there are better players than Doyle, but I completely agree. We could have brought someone in who was a better footballer, but I don't think we needed what Doyle brought, and that's the thing you don't have a lot of.
Here. I'm going to round things off. So Bayliss, obviously, Jones, obviously. For me, favourite player this year has ended up being Biamu. I'm completely head over heels in love with him now. I think the fact that I was disappointed, critical of him in the first games that he played. I just didn't think he looked. I couldn't get it. I didn't see what his thing was, I just thought he looked way off the pace. The improvement in his play and his ability on the pitch has been stunning. And the goals that he scored at the times that he scored them, Ed, you talked about moments. For the moments of the goals that he scored have been outrageous, haven't they? And none more so than that third against Notts County. I know that it wasn't the most spectacular individual thing, but just the composure and everything to put that away in the way that he did, I just think is fabulous. But I also just like the fact that he just seems like the nicest bloke in the world. Yeah. He just seems like such a genuinely fab fella, doesn't it? And I think
he loves being loved. He loves being. It's always last off the pitch. Maybe not because just because I feel like he loves the adulation. He loves to get involved with everybody. Obviously had a lot of criticism early on in the season, but now it's just. I don't think he ever wants to be a bad footballer ever again, and let's hope he isn't.
And I like an underdog story, and I like it when somebody works hard and it pays off for them. And I think that and as well, huge credit to Robbins and Vivish. Is that right? Yeah, I think that's the first time I've ever said his name. Between the three of them, assuming that's who have been the people that have got it into themselves, they've turned him into a very, very, very good striker, haven't they? I think I really love him. He'd be, and I know that this is going to be this season's Stuart Bevan and Kwame Thomas, but that he'd be him and McNulty absolutely straight away first choice strike partnership next season.
Can we also just say as well, massive credit to Robbins about McNulty too?
Oh, absolutely.
Which, I think has got to go down as one of Robbins' massive achievements.
It had to work, didn't it? He staked his.
Yeah, completely.
Once he got rid of Niis on, it had to work for him. He put all of his eggs in the McNulty basket.
But it
came out right. I mean,
he knew his man as well, didn't he? He knew the way that
completely bought it, didn't he?
And a few of them have been really, really. I mean, I guess you're always going to be full of praise for the manager that's just been in charge while they're taking you up. But the people have referenced individual things about Robbins, and that McNulty said that I needed someone to keep saying to me, "No, it's fine. Just go and play the next game and score."
And he was actually saying it publicly as well.
Yeah,
which could have made him look like an idiot.
I think. I've been critical of different things with Robbins, obviously, this season, but there's so much that he's done that's been very obviously absolutely exceptional. Very quickly then, fondest memory, Paul.
It's got to be Wembley again, hasn't it? I mean, just getting promoted the first time since 1967. It's just There's been ups and downs in the season with different spells where we couldn't win. We've had the double done over us by Forest Green and Yeovil, but in 10 years' time, all you'll remember is basically Wembley, and that's all it is, isn't it? It's just getting out. I mean, the only thing that sort of the only thing that sort of slightly put a damper on Wembley was when he goes, promoted to League One, and you're like, oh yeah. we're back in the division I want to be in. But at least we're no longer in League Two. So it's got to be just getting promotions, get out of this fucking division first time, because if we hadn't gone up, we would, obviously this pod would be slightly different because we'd have lost at Wembley, but we'd be talking about 4 or 5 of our best players going, and the fact that we can build on this squad now is absolutely massive for next season. And let's hope this is the start of something good. Everything about it, 6,000 season ticket sales, the momentum, that just we haven't even mentioned the city, the open top bus parade around the city, where you had all the people out. There's, for the first time in an awfully long time, there's a feel-good factor about this football club.
Ed, fondest memory?
I can't think of one moment that encapsulates it, but I want to say the sort of feeling that maybe the relationship between the team and the squad and the fans is kind of better than it has been
ever,
possibly in my memory of supporting them, which is about kind of quite long, actually, about 25 years. Like, it feels like things are slowly getting better, and I can't put my finger on a single moment that embodies that, but just this general sort of affection that I feel is kind of been built up over the season between the team and the supporters, which has just been really great. And it actually it makes the experience of supporting them so different.
Yeah. Neil, fondest memory?
Notts County away semi-final again. Made me feel things, unusual things, but I want to feel them again. So good.
And I'm completely with you. I know it sounds counterintuitive in the playoffs to not pick the final, but weirdly, the Notts County second leg, it felt like if we could get through that semi, it felt like we could win it. And the fact that, and obviously this is a sort of half joking thing, and the fact that it meant that I could start drinking again after 8 months off. But honestly, specifically, I mean, the first and the second were something else. But the third goal, the Biamu got after we'd weathered all that storm, and then Biamu had the composure to do that, and then it literally couldn't have been any better than Tom Bayliss running through, and so totemistic of what was good about us this season. That aggression and power from Bayliss of running through, and then the accuracy of just bamming it in the bottom corner. It just, the atmosphere in the crowd was on such a knife edge before the game, and I think it could have been absolutely vile that day if we'd have lost. And instead, the atmosphere in there was like nothing. Even, forgive me, even better than Wembley. The atmosphere in that stadium, it was just electric. Everyone was so happy, and I think there was so much riding on it. It was just because it felt like it felt like we should go out, didn't it? It felt like Notts County had got it all stacked in their favour. Their home form was amazing. We hadn't actually, we'd faltered a bit. We couldn't tell which team was going to turn up, and then just for us to go there and just rip them apart like we did was just, oh man. So that's that. That's the season. That's the season that was. Right, okay, I'm going to fly through the listener questions now because you've all had quite enough of us. Some of these rhetorical, some of them not. See if you can guess which are which. Paul from Jazzcat Stokesy. It's a Twitter. It's a nom de plume rather than a full name. Is Paul ever going to change the Gary Mabbutt's knee logo in the centre of his Twitter logo, or is the off-centre look some sort of cool anti-circle? I preferred the square look stance.
I'm too scared if I do anything with it, I'll lose it forever. So it just stays as it is.
Paul, I love the fact that you read that as one of the non-rhetorical questions.
You've got to speak to your public. When the people ask you questions, you've got to answer sincerely.
Neil, has Doyle got another season in him?
Yes, he has. I reckon he's got another couple.
Yeah, but in League One.
Football, running around, yes.
I agree. I agree with you. I mean, I know what you're saying, Paul, but I almost think he's Gary Speed now, isn't he? which I know is
it's really not.
But it's quite an oblique.
It's just not.
But it's an oblique reference. But you know what I mean? Is that actually he is now more character than player, isn't he? And that isn't to denigrate him. I think that he has an influence on the pitch that I'm not sure that I think sort of belies his shortcomings, doesn't it?
I think we should, sorry, can I just quickly say, I think we shouldn't get too sort of carried away with the idea that all he is, is like a heart that's been ripped from a lion, and then like the sort of the bollocks that have been sort of taken from a Spartan or something like that and stitched onto him. He's not bad as a player
in League One.
That's the thing, isn't it?
I know League 2's shit, but I mean, League 1 wasn't that great either, was it?
I think it's an awful lot better than League 1. League 2,
yeah, maybe.
We've had times this season when we haven't played particularly well, and Doyle hasn't played particularly well either. I think my issue with the Gary Speed comparison is Gary Speed was a class act playing in a level way beneath and he just basically, in the way that when Glenn Hoddle went to Swindon, he basically just strolled around the pitch going, look, I'm just Glenn Hoddle, just, leave me alone and I'll get on with it. Doyle isn't really like that. I think it'd be interesting to see. I'm not sure how good this team is in League One anyway, but I'm not sure if we can rely on Doyle week in, week out. I think teams could just bypass him a bit more in League One. League One is a step up. It definitely is.
Question for Ed from friend of the show Ian Heron. If we sold Bayliss, would you have him back on a season-long loan?
Absolutely. Yes. Next question.
Alex Craig, what are you expecting from the squad from now until our first pre-season game in terms of signings and players leaving, and where do you think improvements need to be made? Paul, why don't you just fit that end bit of it? Where would you prioritise strengthening?
We've signed a left back. I would sign a right back. I would sell one of the 4 centre halves and bring in a new centre half. I'd bring in a centre midfielder, and I'd hope to keep Jody Jones and Tony Drew, and I wouldn't bother with Johnson Clark Harris. I'd bring in another striker as well.
So Paul's answer: everywhere.
We're a League 2 side. If it's that easy, then we wouldn't sign anyone. I just think we only have one right back in Grimmer, so we definitely need to bring in someone to rival him. So, I mean, that's the most obvious place to start.
I literally agree with everything you just said, Paul. That's what I was going to say.
Neil, Rob Lowell asks, is Bayliss better than Maddison?
This question. Right. First of all, you can't compare these two players. They are different players. But if we want to put a measure of better on it, which one of those would cope in the Premiership at the moment? I think Bayliss would not cope in the Premiership at the moment, but Maddison is relentlessly good. And I love Bayliss, but I think we sometimes get a little bit carried away. And like we were talking about earlier about sort of moments, Bayliss very much is about moments, and he'll go for periods of 20, 30 minutes not doing anything. Maddison, throughout the course of a match, is just absolutely relentlessly good. And I know I love him, and I know I am very much biased because I watched him so many times, but I cannot remember seeing a player have that. There was a reel of his best bits of the season, and it went on for 15 minutes. And this wasn't sort of arbitrary sort of little flicks. This was genuine impact in the match. That's how good he is.
The other thing I would say about Maddison this year is he was playing in a Norwich team that finished 13th, I think, and were notorious for being a compact, boring team, of which he was the only kind of creative light. Norwich fans, get in touch if you disagree with that. But also, isn't there a statistic that he made more key passes than any footballer in Europe?
No, he was in the top 5. There was only about 8 or 9 who made key passes over 100, and he was like 4th or 5th on the list.
No, you're right. He's shit.
Really good.
Yeah.
No. But I think it goes back to this sort of the McNulty discussion is, as brilliant as Bayliss has been, in the same way as brilliant as Jones was, it's in that context. It's in League 2. The thing with Maddison, he's as you said, absolutely stood out in an average team in the Championship. For him, the next step has to be the Premier League, and you just hope that he goes to a team who are going to play him, because he is a very particular type of player who you've got to, if not build around, you've got to put him in. 10, 20 years ago, if he was English, we'd have played him on the right wing. He needs to go to somewhere where they're going to play him in the middle, where he can actually... All right, I'll make it very simple. I don't want us to joke. I don't want someone to joke hole him.
Yeah.
Where you take this majestic footballer, this mercurial footballer, and basically turn him into a workhorse, and you beat that skill out of him.
And he's good enough not to be that. He doesn't have to be that player, does he? He's too good to be wasted. And not to be too non-cov about this, but I saw a rumour, and it came from BBC, so it was probably more legit than others, but like 40 million for Jack Grealish to Spurs. Now, if Spurs are going to look at Jack Grealish for 40 million, how much does that make Maddison? And also, what the fuck are Leicester doing getting involved in this? Leave him alone. He's too good for you.
George Thomas has had a whisper in her ear. I need someone to play front of me in the academy.
Oh, God. If that happens, he's just wasting his career if he goes there.
Leicester's perfect, though, isn't it? Because Mahrez has gone.
And Mahrez is very much a wide player, isn't he? Yeah.
But what I mean is, you've got the opportunity to basically, you're not putting Mahrez's nose at. You can bring him in and build a team around him now. You've got that opportunity. At Leicester, they don't have anyone else to build a team around.
I think
you've got that opportunity.
You'd have to restructure them in a way that I'm not sure would be all that positive for them, but that's a different story. From friend of the show, Andrew Russell, how about when did you really start believing when did you really start to believe we were going up? For me, it wasn't until the first half at Notts in the playoff, and even then I was twitchy until the third. Paul, as you know the man.
I wasn't convinced we were going to go up until we scored the second at Wembley. Even in the playoffs, it was a case of Exeter are a decent team. I thought it was going to be, as I said to you, I thought it was going to go to the 90th minute, if not extra time. I thought it was going to be really attritional, close game. It was just, I thought both teams would cancel each other out. And then when we scored the second, you were like, we're not going to lose this from 2-0 up. That Exeter don't have enough about them, and we're just too full of confidence. So, I'm not going to proclaim, I thought we were going to get promoted against Notts County.
Oh, I did.
I mean, even the home game, the first game of the season, it was just like, because I know what we're like. And I still don't think we played particularly well in the first leg of the playoffs. And I was concerned that we still had another performance in us which wasn't particularly good. So it wasn't until we were 2-0 up that I was satisfied.
I still think about going 1-0 up at Notts County in the second leg, and the fans around us singing, "We're going to Wembley," and Jimbo being like, "Shut up! Shut up! Don't say it out loud yet." Right, two more. Ed, this one's for you. This is from Ray Royce.
Okay.
Again, possible nom de plume clue there. If you could put Junior Brown's hair on Mark Robbins or Ryan Haynes's on Oggy, which would you choose?
I don't know. Now I'm thinking about the other permutations. Like, what would Ryan Haynes's hair look like on Junior Brown, and vice versa?
Presumably, emphasis very much on the perm of permutations. There in this,
I'm telling you, Ryan Haynes's hair on Jordan Willis, Matthias Sammer.
It's literally that simple.
Life is that simple.
I think it is. Right, well, final question from Sam Seaton. This one's for Neil. Do you think we could get promoted out of League One?
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said for momentum. I think there's a lot to be said for the feel-good factor. We need to sort of establish the squad a little bit more, but I think absolutely yes, we can win games of football in League One and we can go up. So I'm all up for it.
I specifically saved that one for you because I was hoping you'd say yes and end us on a positive note. Cheers for not letting me down.
I was going to subvert you, but
right, okay. For yet another season number 6. I think that's the end of the Neil Lamptey show until next season. I wanted to, before we go, and I'll ask for any other business, I wanted to ask people to get over to... I can't think of the thing for it. Have a look at our Twitter, and it's twitter.com/Neil Lamptey show. there is a GoFundMe going at the minute for COV fans to donate to a thing to get season tickets for people who want one but can't afford one. And it's just, we've talked about the good feeling amongst fans and good things that are going on. It's just a lovely thing to do. So you can donate to that. I think it's met its target, but I think obviously if we find more money towards it, then that's more people who wouldn't have the means to go and that might be able to either share a season ticket or do whatever is going to happen with that. But it's just a lovely thing that people are trying to do. So if you've got a spare couple of quid that you could chuck into that, that'd be a nice thing to do. I just think it was a nice idea by someone that actually people have got behind. So well done to the person that's set that up and done it and everything. And if you've got the opportunity to get over there, I think if you look on Sky Blues Talk, there's a thread about it there. You can find it on our Twitter somewhere, and I think if you just put in Coventry City GoFundMe, you'll probably be able to find it. Anything that anyone wants to plug? How come we've not capitalised on the promotion yet? I say yet. I'm sure we'll find a way to monetize this some way.
I thought we were going to do. I thought we were going to do League One tours. Neil Lamptey League One tours.
I was going to say. I mean, that is exactly what we're going to do. But I was going to save that as a surprise until.
Sorry,
Paul.
That seems a fitting note to end this shambles.
Can we plug? I want to plug a couple of blogs. Sideways Sammy's end of year.
Oh, of course.
Which is
gargantuan.
Incredible. Wow. It's very good. And Laurie, who is the genius of our time. Great stuff. Yeah,
I mean, Dominic's is he's so thorough and really, really pleasing on the eye. The whole thing's put together beautifully and is just, is so thorough and in-depth. And Laurie's, again, has just been a really, really good fun read, hasn't it? Really, really good stuff. Anything else before we wrap up?
Can we do a GoFundMe to get David McGoldrick back?
Isn't he out of contract?
Yeah, he's coming. God. He's going to be out of contract this summer.
Can you imagine it? Can you imagine
for a week?
Can you imagine what an ineffective partnership him and McNulty up front would be?
I don't think we haven't even talked about the we haven't even made a list of our favourite signings of the season, because mine was Baker's return.
Oh God!
The impact. I mean, this pod's got another hour to go just on that subject alone.
Yeah, if only it had. Right, okay, I'm going to wrap this up before anybody starts talking about Cal Baker. I think we made it out without it coming up. Before we go, I want to thank, we mentioned Dominic, I want to thank Dominic very specifically for all of his preview contributions this year, which has stopped us having to just directly plagiarise his work. Thank you to Laurie for coming on so frequently and doing a good job of being a proxy Ed. Thanks to Ed for occasionally deigning to show his face back into the world that spurned him. Thanks to anyone who I'm forgetting who's been on, CJ et al. And thank you most and notably to Neil and Paul.
Thank you so much.
Bloody legends.
Bloody creep.
And thank you, listener. We'll be back sometime towards August. Bye.